Dan RadioStyle. Hope everybody out there's having themselves a great day. This is a show I really wanted to do, and it's something that's really been a huge thing in my life. It had a lot to do with why I started doing less videos on this channel. It's just everything. And it's really what's going on in the world today, the state of affairs. But more importantly, from a huge spiritual component, this is a big deal in my mind. I know other YouTubers are talking about it as well. There's a transition that's happening. I've got it broken down into three sections, and I think this really will hopefully help people, everyone, understand what really is going on today. And I'm not saying which side is right, which side is wrong, none of that. What I'm talking about is what actually is happening, and you might actually find it to be quite fascinating. So there's three key ingredients to how we're going to understand this. First ingredient is the densities of consciousness. There's 7 of them. I'm going to break those down for you real quick so you'll understand, because how those frame, if you will, matter for the second part, which is service orientation. So the way you are orienting yourself, service to self, service to others, that whole component is key to what's happening right now. And then finally, the transition decision, which are basically, we're all going to decide individually as souls what our future path is going to be. Now, there's a couple aspects going on there. We've got harvest, and we've also got the fact that the planet herself is transitioning and has requested as such that pretty much only service to self continue on. So let's cover some of the basics here if we can. First, let's cover densities. Very important. So the first density, that's the red color, usually tied into the same rays or colors of the rainbow and also of the chakra system, at least the 7 chakra system. We'll discuss that a little bit further. Color red is the basic atomic structure. What this comes down to, the first density consciousness, if you will, is really the building blocks of manifestation, oddly. So for all the manifestation stuff we talk about, this is where it comes from, and it's the energy between atoms, between elements. Now, a lot of you know that an atom has got 99% empty space around it, right? You've got the little proton and neutron in the nucleus, and then on the outside you get electrons going all over the place. So first density is the energy just staying together atomically. So that's the first density. Second density, orange, has to do with growing towards the infinite creator, growing towards source, growing towards the light. Trees, really a lot of our standard elements, the 4 elements, right? Like fire, wind, air, like all that stuff kind of has its own energy and vibration and life to it. And all of it tends to grow upward. This is where like fungus and all your smaller animals and creatures. And towards the end of advanced 2D or second density understanding, that's where you start seeing wild animals that actually start to get friendly with humans or maybe with other species. And it's as that it starts to strive upward, it starts to reach into what the third density is, which is the yellow ray. And that has to do with self-awareness. Just being aware of the fact that, oh, I'm here and you're there. Animals, our pets, are a great example. In fact, most animals, like, even horses and stuff, get that understanding of when the human walks up, they understand it's another person, they understand that there's a consciousness there, and you can actually get a bit of a personality exchange with that animal. So that, again, that third level, that self-aware, is a pretty basic kind of fundamental, but it's also where the ego tends to come in, and that whole self versus others. So again, there's a lot of us that have graduated from third dimension and are really in the fourth dimension, which is love, or the green ray as well. But it has to do with love. And this is actually the neatest part of this whole journey of the 7 rays, is the fourth density is where you make your first real choice. And that's a big part of what's going on today. This is where the choice of service to self comes into play versus service to others. But it really is through the orchestration of love that we learn this, that we study this, that we begin our journey of mastery. And essentially, once we've made that choice and we realize that's the path we're going, that's really what starts to lead towards that 5th density. So that's early 4th in the love sense, where you decide, no, I kind of want to come at it from this angle, or no, I want to come at it from this angle. That's really the graduation into the 5th density, which ties into the transition I talked about earlier. We're going to get all this here, but the 5th density is a big deal too, because that's where a lot of us are on this focal point right now. So understanding the connection control over our dominion. understanding that we have kind of powers, if you will, over what's happening in our reality. It's where a lot of us from the law of attraction world are really coming into play. The fifth density is truly around your mastery of manifestation, of realizing that I actually am controlling what's going on around me. And you've already made your choice in the fourth density, which orientation you're going to choose. So it's very focused and very centric on that orientation. And you essentially master that orientation, service to self or service to others, and through the manifestation, through dark arts, positive arts, right, just all the magic, right? All these things start to come into play in the fifth dimension, or fifth density living. Sorry, those words get used interchangeably, unfortunately. Sixth density, or the indigo density. This is where everything comes back together. There's no longer good and evil. There's no longer up and down. There's no longer left and right. The concept of yin and yang, that whole circle with the little bit of white and the black and a little bit of black and the white, that symbol that was given to us thousands of years ago is referencing the sixth density, basically. It's talking about how it's not black and white. It's a mixture. It's all of it. And that is truly what everything is. It is all of those things together. People are both good and bad. You don't just say, well, you're good. No, that's not true. He just kicked a person the other day. He just punched a puppy, right? Like, that's not, no, he did some bad stuff. So not everything people do is always good. We make mistakes. We're up and down. That's part of the thing. But do we learn from it? Do we change? Do we grow? And that's really where a big part of it comes in. Now, the seventh violet ray is supposedly kind of like finding the end of the internet, apparently. It's essentially, you've pretty much done everything there is to do. So there's no reason to try to do it anymore. You're done. Now, there is discussion that there is, much like the 12th or 13 chakra system, which those extra chakras usually sit around the crown above your head. So they're kind of outside of you almost. And that's what they feel that those densities kind of represent, is really more defining the seventh. So the seven still works as a kind of more simplistic form. And in our physical world, there's basically 7 colors of a rainbow, but you probably could break it into 13 and give all sorts of different names for the gradients between, right? Red, orange, right? Oh, that's a different color. So again, these things can happen, but the densities are what we are all growing through. That's spiritual evolution, essentially. That is the development of our spirit. Now, one thing that's kind of cool is at this point of choice, where it comes to service orientation, as we've talked about, this is the place where a lot of us get to discuss or decide who and what we want to be, how we're going to view others relative to us. Or am I in a place where I am service to self, which means I am trying to accomplish things for myself by the use of others, trying to get others to do things for me, trying to get others to, essentially it comes down to influencing. It gets into some of the darker arts, by the way, some of the meaner, more angrier things. Certainly powers of hate can come from there. You can still love somebody in a kind of more dark, self-serving way, but you start to get into these relationships that are very imbalanced as far as what one might call healthy, right? They start to be more of a, you're here to serve me, and they tend to have a bit of a controlling kind of nature to them. Again, it's a different path. And you are realizing that we are all one. So what I do for myself, I'm doing for others. And that is true because we are all one. There's the other side of that, though, that says what I do for others, I do for myself. And that's called the service to others path. And that's the path where you realize I enjoy doing good for other people. It gives kind of a different kind of feeling, but you start to realize how many good things come back to you when you send good things out. They're just very different paths. One is very much likened to, much like Star Wars first came out, right? Darth Vader and Luke. It's that dark and light concept, that red lightsaber and green or whatever color Luke's was. But it was an amazing kind of comparison between the two. And that really is the fork in the road. That is the divergent path that all of us are currently on. Right now, the world is, because it's a harvest especially, which we'll get into the transition, that's the third step. We're not there yet. But because of it, this is a big deal. But right now, we are all at the place where we're making a decision. And right now, there is a huge amount of souls that are here from a lot of different places that are here for this harvest, that are here for this last chance to make an experience, that are here actually for a very monumental thing that's happening on the earth as well. What's happening on this planet is spectacular in larger circles throughout the galaxy, universe, I don't know. Big world out there, apparently. But they're paying great attention to what's happening, and many of us have come to help. So part of what is going on is we're making that decision. And you know what? It's not an issue of what's right, what's wrong. It's an issue of what's your decision, because your whole harvest, your whole concept of your soul, the next number of life cycles that you experience are going to be tied into this path. So either you're here, that's kind of more focused on self, kind of more focused on, well, what can I get from others? How can I get others to give me more? How can I take advantage of situations? How can I manipulate that over there? It's a very different outlook on the world around you. How can I get versus how can I give? It's kind of a different way. And again, right, wrong, I know I'm slanted towards the light. So yeah, duh. I mean, I've got my preferences there. But if the service to self is the path that you want to go, choose it, harmonize it, hone it, because the decision time is vastly drawing nigh. And so if you've done a good job and graduate service self path, which is possible, then awesome. That means 95% of the time, you've got to be self-center focused. 5% of the time, though, you literally have to actually try to do, like one day a year, you actually should volunteer and you pretty much cover your 5% and then just be selfish the other 364 days. Kind of a good way to go about it. If you want to graduate or harvest or whatever as positive, as service to service to others. If you want to graduate service to others, all you have to do is just over 50% of the time be trying to help others. Now, I mean, just from a selling standpoint, much easier path to graduate on, but graduation doesn't matter. If you get held back a year, I mean, maybe your friends make fun of you, but the cool thing is you're the first one that's old enough to drive, so everybody's going to love you when it happens. So don't worry about it, right? Like, make sure you're choosing the path that's good for you. If you got to do one more cycle, if you don't graduate this year, it's okay. No big deal. No big deal. But that kind of gets me into the transition. So step 3, and one of the things that's really important with what's going on right now is real quick history study. You're going to have to just sort of trust me a teeny bit. I can't prove it, but there's a giant asteroid belt that's out there between Mars and Jupiter. A lot of people said it was because of the gravity of the two planets crushed a planet. And then there's a whole other side of things that suggests that maybe there was actually another planet at one time that got in a fight, basically, with the planet Mars, planet of war, oddly. Isn't that funny? And Mars has no atmosphere. Mars definitely has some strange monuments on it that suggest that maybe people once lived there. That's crazy, I know, so whatever. But that being said, there was a period of time where there was a bunch of beings that went, oh, we need help. And they ended up coming here. The planet Earth, basically, she said, all right, I'll take them. And as that small, dark spot came to Earth, and started being a part of the planetary life cycles here, that dark energy grew very, very strong and eventually more or less took root and took hold and took charge. And so has been in charge of this planet, probably, some would suggest, close to 1,000 years. I don't know, it's just biblical numbers, right? Who knows? It's been a long time. Been a long, long time. So what's happening today is, or what happened quite a while ago, a lot of people called out. Enough people finally cried out to say, hey, help, this is ridiculous, how much dark and evil and horrible things and war and all these horrible things that happened. People crying out, stop the violence. And so because of that, Earth was able to decree and decide, I no longer want to have service to self be a part of my domain. Those people can go to another planet sphere somewhere, who knows, in some other galactic system, could be 1,000 light years away, it could be in a whole other galaxy someplace, who knows? It's a giant universe with plenty of space between all of us. So if that is needed, they will be traveling to another system. Now, I don't know how that happens from a consciousness standpoint, but the transition is what I'm referring to, because this planet is going to stay service to others. So those that are staying on the service to others path, we will be staying on the planet. For those that are going down the other, when the event happens, graduation happens, something's coming in the near future, and you can really tell by the way things are building around us that a crescendo is coming for sure. When that happens, when the choice occurs, I'm personally interested to know how this transition will happen, but understand that's what is coming. So make your decisions, decide the place that you want to be, want to spend time, decide how you want to treat others, whether or not you're here to sort of serve and help and be a part of things, whether you're here to kind of love and give, offer, try not to take away, because there's the other side where there's like restrict freedoms, put like guilt on people, you apply pressure, you try to make them behave certain ways. There's a lot of manipulation, a lot of control, essentially a lot of trying to strip away one's own right to choose. And that's where one of the many divergent sides of manifesting happened. It's where I got the most confused about why is it that I seem to be the weird one here? And that was when I realized, oh, there's two ways to manifest. And from a service to self standpoint, yeah, you can manipulate other people. Yeah, you can do that. You can do all those things. And the problem is I am a service to others path. So I don't look at it that way. I don't see it that way. It's more an issue of, no, people have free will and you work with them. And it's the quality of your being that actually tends to make the difference when you stand before somebody face to face. And it's a very big difference between the way one thinks, between the way one manifests, between the way one uses the law of one. So that was where I was, I guess, kind of failing as a teacher, or at least I was so heavily focused on teaching the service to others path that I think I upset a lot of service to self people. Probably good in the big picture. I don't know if I necessarily want to be a service to self teacher. I definitely know that I've traveled that path. I understand that path very well. And I also understand manipulation very well. But I choose to do it the other way because there's a karmic debt that comes with it. There's a lot that comes with it. It's not like, no, I just take advantage of people and that's it. Oh, cool. How wonderful is that? I get to be a millionaire. Now, by the way, there's millionaires and poor people on both sides. And you don't necessarily have to have a world where you have service to self and service to others cohabitating. You can just be service to self and have an entire civilization that's completely based that way. And you'll have users and you'll have weak people and they'll manipulate and just play that drama back and forth. And you'll get to be on both sides of it. You'll be a user and you'll be abused, right? You'll be on both sides of it. And then there's the service to others worlds where they don't really have service to self. That can exist and doesn't need service to self to exist. You don't have to have necessarily selfish people running around in your happy neighborhood where everybody helps each other, because that tends to cause problems too. And again, that's where we are today. We've got a lot of these people that are like, hey, this is my neighborhood, welcome. And then we've got other people that are like, hey, I don't like what you are. I'm going to take everything you've got. Thanks for giving it to me, because you're here to serve me. It's a different way of thinking. And that is what's happening. When's this event? When's this transition? I've heard people talk about it. I will say there's some very interesting things. Some talk about some sort of galactic superwave. I'm going to cover it real quick. Some sort of galactic superwave. I know this will sound crazy. Just go with me for a second. And there is some fact-checking stuff that you can run with. So have fun with that. But supposedly, we've noticed, especially from the stars that are towards the center of the galaxy, towards the center, because that's where they think this galactic superwaves come from, I guess. I don't know. And why isn't anyone telling us? Of course they're not going to. Come on, look at the way society's playing out now. No one's going to tell you anything. But the galactic, so supposedly the stars, and there was like two of them, I want to say, that I've at least read about, that were the furthest one away. They saw it like pulsar, they saw it flicker, they saw the brightness change, something, and then it stopped, and then everything was normal. And then, like a few years later, the other star that was closer to us still, further away from the center, did the same kind of thing. Pulsar did something weird, brightened, blah, 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 right? And then stopped, went back to normal. They noticed, I want to say it was back in November of last year, of 2019, that something was happening in Pluto that was causing its atmosphere to alter. Either it was compression or something weird like that. I read a story on that. So my guess is we're going to see something hit Jupiter for those that are paying attention. Jupiter, Saturn should be really, maybe even Uranus, but certainly Jupiter should be pretty obvious if this is a wave that's coming, and assuming if Jupiter's actually closer to the center of the galaxy. I'm not sure how we're oriented. I've looked at it before, but I'm actually, now that I think about it, I don't know where Jupiter's at relative to it. It's like, what, in the sixth house? Anyway. So something's happening, it seems like. And my wonder is when that finally does hit our sun, does our sun go blip, 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 and then be cool? But that brightening may be strange, may cause issues. Maybe those that aren't properly oriented It might be enough to, who knows? I don't know what's going to happen, but there is some sort of event. I don't know if spaceships land and we all hop on and get off the planet for a sec. I don't know. I don't know if they help us. No idea. But I know it's going to work out. I do. I know the whole purpose was to transition this planet with as many souls remaining conscious as possible. And that's kind of one of the reasons why it's such a phenomenal effort amongst all the other races and species that exist in this universe, this glorious universe. So again, a lot of interesting stuff is going on today. We are seeing it play out. Best you can do is try to help others as much as you can, or hey, try to get as much as you can. Really make that commitment to the side that you're on, because now's the time to do that. You're going to be judged by yourself, by the way, not by God or some other force. You're going to be judged by yourself whether or not you've sufficiently passed the test. And if you haven't, you'll probably have to recycle onto another location. If you have, I'm wondering if you get to consciously choose to go someplace. Again, I don't know. It's not sure how far off this is. I'm not sure how fast this thing's moving. I mean, Pluto is quite a ways out there. And it did take a few years from that last star to Pluto. So, it's hard to say. Hard to say. But I think it's going quick. And I do think that's why there's such a weird push in this world right now to take control. One side or the other, they keep grabbing for the reins. Like someone wants control of this planetary sphere because we're heading to the event, and I think they figure whoever's holding the reins at the time of the event is going to be in charge. Ultimately, service to others is going to win out in the end, and if service to self is holding the reins at the time of the event, I think all of a sudden they won't be there anymore, and then it'll be like, oh my God, no one's at the wheel. But we'll see how it plays out. I love each and everybody. I think that's one of the things that's kind of funny about coming from a service to others side is, or maybe it's the sixth density aspect, but either way, the understanding that we're all one. I love everybody, even people that are service to self. Got a lot of friends that are selfish, got some relatives. It's just the way it is. But I know a lot of very giving and cool people too, and I love those people as well. And frankly, I tend to side with that, at least in this planet and here, but I love the way that this universe is an amazing concept. The way that God, Source, created this playground. It's incredible. It's incredible. Hopefully this has helped explain some of the crazy stuff that's going on today. Thanks for joining me. Stay on Radio Style.